continue in the meantime. A car hijacked every 22 minutes in South Africa. That's what we highlighted on the show just yesterday, noting a 14% increase in hijackings in a 3-month period. This, of course, compared with last year. So to continue that conversation, let's now speak to Jenni Irish-Qhobosheane, a researcher at the Global Initiative Against Transnational Organized Crime. She reflects on the social economy of hijackings in South Africa. Jenni, thank you so much for your time and good morning to you. I think to better understand organized crime, I'd like to pick your brain on the economy of crime. I mean, the flow of money, some of the key figures that have been alleged and identified to also be involved, because obviously we know with organized crimes, there are syndicates involved as well.
Yeah, we've just completed quite an extensive risk assessment of organized crime in South Africa. And one of the things that we found was that South Africa had, the two factors really were, South Africa has one of the most diverse markets when it comes to organized crime. And the second thing is that many of these markets intersect. So you will have, to some extent, drug markets linking into hijacking markets, linking into illicit firearm markets. So the markets very often interlink.
And with that being said, I mean, what support, financially or otherwise, do these criminals get, these syndicates, these masterminds, to commit the crime?
So I think that obviously there are different levels of the syndicates, and the people at the lower level who are often taking the biggest risk. So, for example, in the hijacking arena, the people that are actually carrying out the hijackings and taking the biggest risks are at the lower level of the networks, and they would receive the lesser amount of money for their cars. The people that are repossessing the cars from the hijacked individuals and repurposing those cars are the people that stand to make the most amount of money.
Jenni, I just wonder, should we underestimate the skills involved in, some of the masterminds and committing these crimes?
I think you get two types of networks. The one type of network is your really opportunistic, less sophisticated networks of people that are involved in the car hijacking. But then you get seriously sophisticated networks where the hijackings are targeted at a particular car and carried out with quite a lot of precision. And in those cases, the networks are highly sophisticated. They would either repurpose the car for sale in the country, or they would take the car across the border and sell it in neighboring countries.
Yeah. I mean, where does then border control come into play here? One would think it shouldn't be that easy to move a hijacked car from one country to another.
I think, we have extensive land borders, which are notoriously difficult to police. But I think we've also seen some problems around our approach to those land borders. So if you look at Kwazulu-Natal's border with Mozambique, that border has always been a prominent area for vehicles to move through from South Africa into Mozambique. And at one point, there were serious delays in setting up proper security around that borderline. And the project has been a stop-start project. And it really needs, and we really need to focus on some of those issues.
Yeah, and I suppose my last question to you, do you think the technology we have in place is sufficient, or even some interventions, to either avoid hijackings or to act quickly enough before that car is, for example, moved to another country? I'm also talking about the likes of your trackers, mechanisms, interventions that are used to ensure that they can track your car in X amount of time. Is that sufficient? Are you seeing more effectiveness when it comes to such interventions?
I think that Tracker and place organizations like Tracker, etc., have got a relatively good track record in recovering vehicles. But when you're talking about highly sophisticated networks involved in this, they would actually very often be able to move the vehicle into a place where the tracking signal is not working and remove that tracking signal in a very short space of time. So I think that as preventative measures become more sophisticated, so do the organized crime groups that are involved in the crimes.
All right, and I'll leave it there. And I appreciate you speaking to us this morning. Jenni Irish-Qhobosheane from the Global Initiative Against Transnational Organized Crime. Thank you for joining us this morning.